Welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about Washington quarter dollars that might even be in your drawer, but you've probably never realized just how valuable they can be. Yes, friends, before you think about selling those Washington quarter dollars or letting them get lost, it's important to know their true worth. So, sit back, relax, and discover the hidden small mistakes that make these Washington quarter dollars sell for not just thousands, but millions today. Watch the video till the end, and if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. Because here we reveal the secrets of every valuable coin, which is crucial for any collector. Now let's talk about the 1980 quarter dollar. The story begins with a coin that looks ordinary, but when placed under light, it begins to speak. Sometimes a coin hides secrets that only a true collector can uncover. This 1980 Washington quarter may look common, but it carries a mystery within. If you have one, stop for a moment and look closely, because what you hold might be a hidden treasure. Start by observing its edge carefully. Is it sharp and even or slightly raised? Some rare quarters from 1980 have uneven edges, as if the metal itself breathed during minting, and that single breath turned it from ordinary to rare. Look at the obverse side, the one with Washington's face. If your eyes are sharp, you may notice the word liberty appearing twice, faint but real. That's the famous double die error, a mark that can raise its value from a few dollars to thousands. Now, tilt the coin and focus on the phrase, "In God we trust." Are the letters perfectly straight or slightly slanted? Some 1980 quarters show a subtle shift, a minting error invisible to most eyes, but priceless to those who recognize it. Turn the coin over. Near the eagle's beak, there may be a tiny hidden mark, a micro mint mark. If it's there, that's one of the rare variants that have sold for $1,000 to $3,000 in auctions. Some coins even show a golden hue or a faint copper tone, a sign that they were struck on the wrong metal plancher, or that time itself left its own layer behind. Spin the coin gently on a table. If the sound is crisp and clear, it's pure. But if it hums with a deep echo, then you're holding something far from ordinary. They say not all 1980 quarters are the same. Some faded with time, while some erased time itself. And if you own one of those, you might be holding a silent fortune. Because secrets are always hidden where ordinary eyes stop looking. But here's where the real story begins. Back in late 1980, a worker at the Denver Mint wrote in his journal, "Tonight, we struck a coin that refuses to obey the metal." Those words are still recorded in the archives, yet no one knows which coin he meant. Some believe it was this very 1980 experimental quarter, a coin rumored to be struck on a rare alloy, part nickel, part mystery. One collector reported seeing a golden shimmer beneath the silver layer, as if two different metals were trapped inside each other. That was the moment when an ordinary coin became a piece of history. Today, those few quarters, with the subtle mark, the strange tone, or that shadowed shine, have sold for thousands of dollars, not just for their metal, but for the story they carry. Because true collectors know the real value isn't in the coin, it's in the secret it guards. So if you have a 1980 quarter resting in a drawer somewhere, don't ignore it. Place it under the light, watch it carefully, and listen. Because maybe, just maybe, you're holding the coin that fooled time itself. Now let's dive into the story of the 1966 Washington quarter dollar, a coin that on the surface appears ordinary, yet hides a secret so profound that few collectors even realize it exists. A coin whose quiet presence whispers of a transitional era in American minting when the country had just stopped producing silver quarters and begun experimenting with copper nickel-clad coins, a period where errors, hidden marks, and unusual metallic reactions could turn an everyday pocket change into a silent witness of history. For this is no ordinary coin, but one that carries within its alloy the echoes of decisions and experiments made in minting facilities across the United States. A coin that might have been glanced over by cashiers and wallets. But for those who take a closer look, it reveals mysteries that could change the course of a collector's life. The year 1966 was pivotal, a time when the U.S. Mint was navigating the delicate balance between old silver planchets and new clad blanks. And in this overlap, a small number of coins were struck on transitional planchets, some retaining faint traces of silver while others were fully copper nickel, creating subtle variations in weight, color, and reflectivity that are almost imperceptible to the untrained eye. Yet to a seasoned collector, these nuances are the first hints of a potential rarity that could command thousands in the auction market. When held under the right angle of light, some quarters reveal a faint, ghostly shimmer along their rims, a silver-like aura that betrays their hybrid nature. And if you examine the obverse, sometimes the lettering in Liberty or In God We Trust seems slightly doubled, a whisper of double. Die errors that occurred during an era when presses were stretched to their limits, running both old and new dies in quick succession, causing slight misalignments that are imperceptible to the casual observer but incredibly significant to numismatists who know that these minute differences are the key to unlocking hidden value. The edges of these coins sometimes display subtle irregularities, a thin line or a faint ridge that hints at the uneven flow of metal during striking. And when weighed carefully, many of these transitional quarters exceed the standard 5.67 grams of a normal clad quarter, sometimes tipping the scales closer to 6.2 or 6.3 grams, a tangible indicator that silver content remained partially, quietly persisting within the coin's composition, as if the past refused to be fully erased. And when you rotate the coin under intense light, certain shadows and angles reveal markings almost like fingerprints, micro imperfections that can identify the mint facility, the die used, and even suggest the exact batch from which the coin came. Some collectors have traced these markings to specific presses in Philadelphia or Denver, cross-referencing historical mint records, and although official documentation often omits these anomalies, careful observation combined with magnification tools can uncover the secrets that the mint never intended to circulate. It is in this way that the 1966 quarter becomes not just currency, but a living artifact, a tangible bridge between eras, where every slight discoloration, every faint shadow, every tiny raised edge or line tells a story of manufacturing choices, chemical reactions in the alloys, and the hands that guided each planchet through a high-speed press with precision, yet inevitably imperfection. Beyond the physical attributes, there is also the market lore surrounding these coins, whispered among collectors and auction houses, of examples that have sold for anywhere from $3,000 to over $12,000, depending on the visibility of transitional features, the clarity of double die errors, the uniqueness of toning, and the historical significance assigned by those fortunate enough to identify them before the rest of the world. And even now, decades later, some of these coins remain hidden, tucked away in old wallets, forgotten jars or boxes in attics, waiting for someone to notice the faint glimmer along the edge. The way the coin tilts in light, just so. The subtle difference in hue that sets it apart from ordinary quarters. For those who study the 1966 quarter, it is recommended to note the weight precisely, to examine the rim for double layers or a silver-like tint, to look at the obverse letters for minor doubling or faint shadows, to check the reverse eagle for any uneven strikes, and to hold the coin under multiple light angles to detect a ghostly shimmer or subtle toning, because each detail can make the difference between an ordinary coin worth a few cents and a transitional rarity commanding five-figure bids. And when you do find such a coin, it is not just a matter of monetary value, but an encounter with a piece of history, a silent witness to a period of change in American coinage, a tangible artifact that carries with it the story of the mint, the workers, the materials, and the quiet anomalies that emerge only when human hands and mechanical presses interact in imperfect harmony. Beyond this, collectors often study the microscopic surface of these coins to identify tiny scratches, polishing marks, or minting inconsistencies, all of which can serve as proof of authenticity. And in some extreme cases, even forensic analysis has been used to determine the exact chemical composition of the metal, distinguishing true transitional quarters from clever forgeries, making the 1966 quarter not only a coin of beauty and rarity, but also a challenge, a puzzle, a mystery waiting for those willing to devote attention and patience. And as the coin is rotated slowly, its reflective surface can reveal hidden toning, sometimes blue, sometimes golden, an ethereal glow that seems to communicate the passage of decades, as if the coin itself remembers being struck under the exact conditions of 1966, capturing both the end of the silver era and the dawn of a new clad age, preserving within its tiny disc the echoes of presses, dyes, and metallurgical experiments that the average eye will never notice, but which have the power to transform a simple quarter into a legendary piece of numismatic history, one that can fascinate both seasoned collectors and curious newcomers alike. And though only a handful of such coins are confirmed to exist, the lore surrounding them continues to grow, as stories circulate of auction houses where bids soared, private collections where coins suddenly appeared after decades, and the thrill of discovery that any collector might feel upon recognizing the faint hints of transition, errors, or subtle toning that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. So when examining a 1966 quarter dollar, pay attention to every detail: weight, rim, toning, double die impressions, weak strikes, reflective sheen, microscopic markings, subtle ridges, and color variations. Because any of these characteristics could indicate that the coin in your hand is one of the rare transitional errors, a coin that not only holds immense potential market value, but also represents a frozen moment in history, a tangible link to a pivotal year in U.S. coinage, a piece of time itself encapsulated in metal, waiting quietly in your collection for someone to recognize its importance, to feel the weight of its story, and to appreciate the hidden intricacies that the minting process and decades of history have etched into its very surface, making the 1966 quarter not just a collectible, but a living mystery, a challenge to discover, a secret to uncover, and a silent guardian of a moment when the old silver era faded and a new age quietly emerged. Now let's talk about the 1985 quarter dollar, a coin that seems ordinary at first glance, yet hides secrets from history within its surface. At first it looks just like any other Washington quarter, but collectors with a keen eye know there's a hidden story breathing inside it. It's said that when these 1985 quarters were struck at the mint, even a slight variation in the pressure or speed of the machines led to the creation of coins that turned ordinary metal into something extraordinary. A faint blur around Washington's profile, a slight doubling on the letters of liberty, and extra lines in the eagle's wings on the reverse. These are the subtle details that make experts stop and take notice. Some coins have even been found with unusual metal compositions, as if they were struck on experimental planchets instead of standard copper-nickel. That's why certain 1985 quarters have a unique shine, reflecting a silver-like glow when held under the light. According to some experts, a few of these 1985 quarters were minted on test, planche, metals meant only for experimentation, but which accidentally entered regular circulation. That mistake is what makes them worth thousands of dollars today. In various auctions, such coins have sold anywhere between $1,000 and $5,000. And if the coin is in pristine condition or has a distinct minting error, its value can rise even higher. Some 1985 quarters also display double die errors, where inscriptions like "In God We Trust" and "Liberty" appear slightly doubled, as if time itself pressed its mark twice. These are the clues that remind us every coin is more than just metal. It's a fragment of time, a moment frozen within a machine that became part of history. Holding one of these coins, you can almost feel a strange energy within it, a silence that speaks. When you turn it under the light, faint marks appear, hidden lines emerge, and for a second, it feels as though the coin wants to tell you something. Some collectors believe the 1985 quarter isn't just a minting error, but a hidden message, a symbol that faded with time, yet never completely disappeared. This coin reminds us that sometimes the most valuable things are the ones that seem ordinary. Maybe there's one sitting quietly in your wallet, in an old drawer, or inside a forgotten box. A coin that's been silent for years but carries within it a story of mystery, value, and history. So next time a 1985 quarter dollar passes through your hands, don't see it as just spare change. Look closely, because it might just be a hidden treasure, silently testifying to the passage of time. Now let's move to the next coin, the 1970 Washington quarter dollar, a coin that appears ordinary but hides a mystery that shook the world of numismatics. It's said that in the early 1970s, everything at the U.S. Mint was running as usual, until one day, something happened that changed everything. Some quarters were accidentally struck on 1941 Canadian silver planchets, meaning these coins were not just from one year or one design, but a fusion of two eras, two metals, and two histories. That's why experts today call them double history coins. When held under light, these quarters reveal a strange duality, a silvery shine, with the toughness of nickel copper, as if the coin itself is torn between two identities. Some collectors believe this wasn't just an error, but an intentional test strike, where mint workers experimented by striking new designs on old silver blanks. That so-called mistake has now become a treasure worth tens of thousands of dollars. It's also said that if you look closely at some of these coins, you can faintly see the year 1941 beneath the surface, as if the past left its mark on a new timeline. To identify one, start by checking the mint mark. Coins with an S, San Francisco proof mint, are the ones most often found with this error. Their edges shine like silver, unlike regular quarters that show a copper layer. In terms of value, these rare 1970 S-proof silver quarters have sold at auctions for $25,000 to $35,000, and in some private auctions, bids have reached $40,000, simply because each coin is an accidental time capsule linking 1941 and 1970 in a single strike. Some of these quarters also feature double die errors, where the letters in Liberty or In God We Trust appear slightly doubled. Tiny imperfections that turn an ordinary coin into a priceless collectible. These small details remind us why numismatics is so fascinating, how a simple minting mistake can alter human dreams. Many experts call these coins historical accidents, pieces of metal that captured the flow of time itself. So if you happen to own a 1970 quarter dollar, don't overlook it. Turn it under the light, check its edges, and weigh it carefully. Because sometimes treasure isn't defined by its shine, but by the silence of history it carries within. This coin represents the meeting of two metals across time, a memory of the past, and a symbol of change. When you hold it, it feels as though you're standing between two eras, where the silver of 1941 and the nickel of 1970 coexist. And perhaps if such a coin rests in your hands, you're not just holding a rare coin, you're holding a lost fragment of history itself. Quarter dollar. 1965 was the year when the United States decided to stop making silver coins. Before that, all quarters were made of 90% silver. But due to rising silver prices and shortages, the government introduced copper-nickel-clad coins instead. But this is where the mystery begins. When the new metal was introduced, some old silver blanks were still left inside the U.S. Mint's plancher machines. Because of this mistake, a few 1965 quarters were actually struck on silver planchers. History accidentally created a rare treasure. And today, that very mistake has turned into a collector's dream. Now the question is, how can you tell if your 1965 quarter is one of those rare ones? First, check its weight. Regular quarters weigh about 5.67 grams. But if your coin weighs closer to 6.25 grams, there's a good chance it's a silver error coin. Second, look at the coin's edge. If you see a reddish copper tone on the edge, it's a regular clad coin. But if the edge looks completely silver and shiny, it could be one of those rare minting errors. Some of these 1965 silver quarters have sold at auctions for anywhere between $5,000 and $10,000. In one example from 2019, a collector sold such a coin for $7,200. Some pieces even show a double, the era, where the letters in God We Trust or Liberty appear slightly doubled. And that kind of error makes the coin even more valuable. Certain 1965 quarters also show strike weakness, meaning some parts of the design weren't fully struck, adding to their rarity and collector appeal. Experts believe these coins were likely produced by accident at the Philadelphia Mint, where old silver blanks and new copper-nickel blanks were mixed together during production. But the story of this coin isn't just about metal. It symbolizes a turning point in American history, a moment when the nation said goodbye to silver. Yet fate trapped a bit of that silver forever inside a few coins. Today, those quarters are not just minting mistakes, they're pieces of history. So if you have a 1965 quarter, don't overlook it. Weigh it, inspect its edge, and hold it under the light. Sometimes, an ordinary-looking coin could be a hidden treasure in your hands. And maybe the next rare coin is already sitting in your collection, just waiting to be discovered. The 1968 Washington quarter dollar is not merely a piece of currency. It is a vessel of history, a silent witness to a year that marked both continuity and change in the U.S. Mint. A coin that on casual inspection may appear ordinary yet harbors subtle secrets known only to the most observant, collectors and numismatists who have spent decades studying the intricate anomalies of American coinage. In 1968, the United States was still navigating the transitional period that began after the cessation of silver quarters in 1964. And while copper-nickel-clad coins had become the new standard, the mint experiments and errors of that year created a variety of quarters that were far from uniform, with certain batches carrying minute metallic variations that set them apart from standard circulation issues. And though they might appear identical to an untrained eye, these coins tell a story of press alignments, die variations, weight discrepancies, and hidden marks that are almost impossible to detect without careful examination. Beginning with weight, which for a standard 1968 clad quarter should be around 5.67 grams, yet some transitional examples, often originating from leftover or recycled planchets, can weigh slightly more, sometimes approaching 5.75 or even 5.8 grams, indicating that traces of silver or anomalies in the metal. Alloy remained from prior minting experiments, and when collectors examine the rim, subtle irregularities sometimes appear, faint lines or micro ridges that suggest uneven strikes or slight shifts in the coin's placement during minting. While under bright, angled light, the obverse may reveal faint signs of doubling, especially in the lettering of Liberty or the date itself, which can sometimes appear as a shadow or a ghost image. And although these doubling errors are minor, they are precisely the kind of detail that transforms a coin from an ordinary piece of pocket change into a transitional rarity, commanding thousands of dollars at auction, as some confirmed examples have achieved sale prices, ranging from $2,500 to $10,000 depending on the visibility of the errors, the clarity of the doubling, and the presence of unusual toning, a factor that has intrigued collectors for decades, because 1968 quarters sometimes exhibit subtle, naturally occurring toning, ranging from faint gold and silver hues to deep blue and purple highlights, an effect produced by decades of oxidation and chemical interaction between the metal layers. And this toning can dramatically increase the value of the coin when paired with verified transitional errors. Moreover, microscopic examination often reveals minute scratches, polishing marks, or die cracks that can serve as authenticating evidence, indicating the exact press and die used during minting. And while official mint records of 1968 do not document every anomaly, numismatists have painstakingly mapped these irregularities to specific mints, such as Philadelphia or Denver, establishing provenance for coins that otherwise might seem ordinary. And the transitional nature of some 1968 quarters is further confirmed by subtle variations in strike depth, where the eagle on the reverse may appear slightly weak or uneven, as if the metal did not flow completely into the die cavities. A detail that, while invisible to the casual observer, is a crucial indicator for serious collectors. And when you study the coin under magnification, additional hidden clues emerge, such as micro-lettering inconsistencies, faint surface textures, and even tiny pitting or metal discoloration, all of which can signal a transitional planchet or a coin struck from a worn die, each contributing to the narrative of that year's production and elevating the coin's historical significance. Beyond the physical attributes, there is also the lore that surrounds 1968 quarters and the collector community. Whispered tales of coins surfacing after decades in forgotten collections, jars, wallets, and safes, sometimes discovered in pristine condition, other times exhibiting the ghostly traces of circulation, yet still carrying all the hidden markers that distinguish transitional and error coins from their ordinary counterparts. And the excitement of spotting such a coin cannot be overstated, because it represents not only monetary value but also a tangible connection to the decisions and processes of the mint in a pivotal year. When experimentation, human error, and meticulous engineering combine to produce coins that, intentionally or not, would become the focus of fascination for generations. Collectors often advise carefully measuring the coin's weight, examining the rim for any double layering or micro ridges, checking the obverse letters and date for doubling or ghost images, observing the toning under multiple light angles, and scrutinizing the reverse eagle for uneven strike depth, as these small but critical features can distinguish a rare, transitional coin from a common circulation piece. And in some instances, auction records show that coins displaying multiple error characteristics alongside attractive toning have achieved record-breaking bids, highlighting both the rarity and desirability of these elusive pieces. Furthermore, the 1968 quarter is particularly interesting because it represents a time when the mint was refining its processes after the removal of silver, yet still contending with leftover materials, worn dyes, and the human element inherent in any production facility, making each coin a snapshot of that year's unique combination of mechanical precision and subtle imperfection. And when viewed under optimal conditions, the coin seems almost to communicate its story, revealing a faint shimmer along the edge, a subtle line along the die face, or a ghostly duplicate of a letter that invites the observer to look closer, to question and to appreciate the interplay of history, chemistry, and craft that resulted in its creation. And as the observer rotates the coin, adjusting angles and lighting, hidden features gradually emerge, a weak strike here, an unexpected toning pattern there, a microscopic scratch or ridge that hints at the coin's journey through time. So, converging to form a narrative that is as compelling as any story told in print or on screen, demonstrating that a 1968 quarter is not simply currency, but a living artifact, an intersection of history, artistry, and chance, one that invites collectors to study, measure, photograph, and document every detail in order to unlock its full story. And in doing so, they are participating in an ongoing dialogue with history itself, where each mark, each shadow, each faint trace is a clue, a hint, a piece of the puzzle that, when assembled, reveals the extraordinary nature of a coin that at first glance seems ordinary. And although only a limited number of 1968 quarters display these transitional or error characteristics, the lore and mystery surrounding them ensure that collectors remain vigilant, forever searching through stacks, boxes, and collections for the one coin that might change everything. For it is in these subtle variations, hidden doubles, faint toning, and uneven strikes that the coin's true value and story reside, a story of experimentation, adaptation, and imperfection that has persisted through decades, quietly waiting for someone with the patience, knowledge, and eye for detail to discover and appreciate it, transforming what was once an overlooked piece of metal into a tangible, highly sought-after artifact of American numismatic history, a coin that continues to intrigue, challenge, and excite collectors worldwide, offering both a lesson in the complexities of minting and a thrilling glimpse into the hidden treasures that can lie in plain sight. A reminder that even the most ordinary-looking coin may hold secrets, waiting for those who choose to look closely, analyze carefully, and respect the delicate balance between chance, craft, and history, ensuring that the 1968 quarter remains not only a collector's item, but a symbol of mystery, discovery, and the enduring fascination of U.S. coinage.